joining us, but that's all right. Let's go ahead and get started. So welcome, everyone. My name is Mindy Tueller, and I manage the Medical Home Portal, and I facilitate this meeting. And let's go ahead and do introductions as well. Rachel just put something in her mouth, so I'm going to call on her.
Rachel Bauer, I'm project consultant at Primary. Gabi Paragushi, one of the QI coaches of UPIC, and today I'm the sound technician. Liz Waddle, parent partner, Summit Pediatrics. And I'm Dusty Frisbee with Summit Pediatrics, care coordinator.
Hi, I'm Colin with the Integrated Services team at the Children with Special Health Care team.
It's early, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm Jan Boker, I'm a Memorial Pediatric Care Manager.
Awesome. Marilyn Howe, Integrated Services. Amy Boynton, University of Illinois. Kim Thomas, Company Group.
Paul Torres, Children with Special Health.
Kim Liu from UCCCN.
Dr. Roman, Director of Person's in behind the pole with Children with Special Health Care.
Special location.
I'm Carrie with Medical Home Portal. Tony Santa with Integrated Services Program. Another CrossFit Integrated.
And the early care coordinator at Wasatch Pediatrics.
Dan Braun with Wasatch Pediatrics.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a little bit of that's wonderful that they're, I mean, that's not wonderful. That's all right. So we'll do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll go ahead and get into our brainstorming session. And then we'll take a couple minutes to talk about any updates to the medical portal, and then we'll get into the kind of the meat of our meeting. Is there anyone on the call yet?
No.
No. Okay. So this may not be an issue, but because of the last part of our motivational interviewing section, where we'll ask you guys to get into groups and work on some little case scenarios, we'll probably stop recording right before then because our audio won't work for that. So anyone that does join us would not be able to sort of participate in that point if they're remote. But otherwise, I think it should work well. So let's, not the right direction. Here we go. Okay, so housekeeping, a couple of things. Is Becca here? No. Do you, Patty, do you know that she sent me a little flyer about the University Life Skills Clinic and the summer camps that they're doing? Okay, so I won't put you on the spot, but we'll let people know that I will be, we will be including this information in the email that goes out after every meeting. There's a flyer. It's actually kind of long, so I chose not to include it in the slides here. But the University Life Skills Clinic apparently is offering some OT summer camps. And when I read through it, what I saw is that they're like weekly, and they're for about an hour. I think they vary a little bit in terms of, you know, which ones of these do which days and sort of what lengths and so on. So you'll need to kind of look carefully through that that flyer that we'll send out. But there's a lot of different opportunities for families to get their kids up there. And I think some of it can be covered by insurance in some cases. Information on payment and how to get signed up and everything is in that flyer, and we'll send that out. But that's something that Becca forwarded to me and wanted to make sure that you were all aware of for any of your families who might benefit. And as I mentioned, some of these sound pretty cool. So music in motion, kids in the kitchen, pretty good. And then we also wanted to ask you about whether or not there might be interest in a fall learning session. So this would be something in addition to whatever our monthly meetings would be in the fall, possibly on a Friday morning, maybe around 3 hours. We'd ask about the time frame as well, and we'll send out an email with more details to gather your responses. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. Some of the possible topics that we could cover, again, based on interest, and this would be not only for you all, but your members of your team as well. So care coordination roles and responsibilities, kind of more information about those details and then adapting those to your practice or organization. We could do a focused review of all the past topics that we've done in this meeting and intro to new ones coming up. We could look at the perspectives of the role of primary care for children and youth with special health care needs. That would be including patients, parents, specialists, comprehensive care, and insurers' perspectives. Also, improving outcomes of pediatric care coordination. That would include funding it, including family partners, other kind of topics under that umbrella, and possibly a panel discussion about actually implementing care coordination. So, not putting anyone on the spot right now, but just know that we'll be sending out an email asking for your interest in that, and would ask you to take that back to your organizations and inquire about it. Okay, and so a little bit of other housekeeping. The Utah AAP chapter is having a practice managers group summer meeting. It coincides with the Common Problems Conference they do each summer, coming up fast, June 6th through 8th, and so that last day, June 8th, they'll have a practice managers group session called Collaborate How to Work Well with Anyone, and they're bringing in another organization that really focuses on how to do this well, and it'll go for about 3 hours, and you are welcome. This was sent to us to forward to you guys to see if you'd be interested. So there's a deadline coming up to get registered for that. So again, that information will go out tomorrow, and you'll be able to see more about that. But in the meantime, you can probably get on their website or contact the chapter if you're interested in signing up for that. Then a couple other things quickly. Our next meeting, June 15th, will be here again, and we're actually very fortunate to have the Utah Parent Center presenting on IEPs and 504s. So we felt like that would be a timely subject and wanted to get it done, in the summer prior to school, kind of nipping at everyone's heels. So hopefully that would be a good meeting for you, and we're looking forward to that next month. And then in July, we're hoping to take some time and do a little hands-on exercise with the Medical Home Portal. We'll have a lot of new tools in place, and we want to actually give you an opportunity to not only just hear about them and kind of see them on the screen, but actually do some hands-on training, hands-on learning. We've been trying to figure out where to have our July meeting so that we could perhaps have a computer lab. We could all meet and everything would be set up for us. That is not working out very well. And some of the options that we have would include some parking hassles and also some like logging on with credentials issues. So we're wondering about whether or not you'd be able to just actually bring your own device. And again, we'll send that question out and ask for you to respond. We have a number of laptops that we could make available, but if you have something that you might be able to bring to this venue, it's pretty easy to get on wireless here, so just we'll ask you that question to prepare for our July meeting. All right, so let's go ahead and get into brainstorming. So hopefully somebody's got some issues that they'd like to get some help with, so they'd like to bring up to the group. So if anybody has something that they're struggling with or have questions on, now is a great time.
I do. So I was wondering if any of you know of any autism services. We have a kiddo that's 6 years old. He's a legal resident, been a legal resident for 2 years, so he doesn't quite yet qualify for Medicaid. So he is self-pay, no health insurance, and is in desperate need of ABA services and therapy. So this is like I said, self-pay patient. Mom is single mom, barely started working.
And they're Salt Lake.
Right. And how much longer? 5 years, I believe, is so much of coverage.
ABA.
Yeah, Yeah, I think I called that first one.
Yeah.
And it's still pretty, they do see self-pay patients, but it's still like, I believe I was told it's like $80 an hour.
Okay.
They don't have a sliding.
So maybe it's actually trying to help them with finding the funding, not so much finding the organization to give them the service. So
Yeah, or
if they have the money, they can find it.
not that I know of. They recently just came back from Mexico. They're living there, and they recently came back. So they're fairly new to our clinic. But as far as I know, Mom hasn't really mentioned any relation. She has a goal. They're working on it. I'm getting them involved. I guess that's, we're hoping that that's gonna help someone, but at this point, the child is got severe anxiety to the point where it's interfering. When he comes to the clinic, he won't allow our providers to do the exams. A year and a half was impossible, running around and all screaming.
Have you tried having them apply for any foundations?
Not yet.
So you don't know if they qualify for,
Like,
like United Healthcare Foundation or Iowa Road Foundation?
We were thinking about the Road Foundation. I was trying to see if, try to find a places where they can do services hopefully, where they didn't have to pay so much, but
And I would look into ABLE differently.
okay.
I would look into ABLE differently. And the only caveat for that is the parent actually has to write. They'll give you money for different services, but the parent actually has to be somebody who writes saying what a difference the service made in the child's life. But they'll give you the money for it.
This is a Spanish-speaking mom, but maybe, maybe we can help with,
Yeah, that's why I mentioned.
Yeah, we do have a,
Yeah.
What have you seen them do? Because I've only seen like little small things, but
Yeah.
I want swim lessons for my kids like that. Do you think ABLE differently will do some like a little bit bigger ticket items?
I don't know. I would definitely try.
We're trying. I
Push
just
it.
didn't know if yeah. So they might have some connections, with Blue Allen. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
He might have some.
it's definitely worth it because he won't hands-on and he'll call up.
Well, and the person I would get in contact with is Janet Wade because she's the one who put it my way.
Okay. Janet also does that play project, and I know you're looking at ABA therapy, but she does that play project for 7 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes they have some funding,
Right.
So I would look into the play project. I'm not speaking that it's no anything.
But she would have I think she would be the person to get the connection, not Blue Allen per se, but it's his foundation, his deal.
And then they can work, once he gets into school, they can start, at least trying to get the IEP going for the kiddo and get HNOT going. Yeah, the kiddo. Yeah, we're working with the school at this point, getting all that set up. And Marilyn came across a really, looks like a pretty good website that the family, if they had access to a computer at home. There's that website, mendability.com, and it's parent-driven, and it's a little bit more toward the sensory, maybe approaching the sensory anxiety type issues. Maryland's family that was going through early intervention got 3 months for free. The funding for it, maybe a little hardship on the family, but nothing compared to ABA therapy. Yeah. So that's something that the family can work on with them as long as the election was covered. These are occupational therapists who work on sensory and behavioral related things, and option of, and I don't know what the price is, but you can have an OT coach that meets with you online. So you've got for one-on-one rather than just giving the appropriate activities for the parents to do. So the family that I was talking to live out in Wendover, there's nothing there. And that this mom went on and on about, yes, and I can do this and do that, things she could do, and she
This is all like online.
yeah. And like I said, I think she got it through the early intervention program she was finishing up, and I think they must have had to get 3 months. But I don't know.
Utah Youth Village, oh, go ahead.
That's a severe anxiety, I think, or something.
They're still trying to, like I said, use planning issues to us, and the first visit didn't go so well because he was so interested. So, our providers are still working on, getting them therapy. We're trying to get them set up with all of it. Yeah.
Okay. The developmental assessment center, University of Nevada, they have neurodevelopmental issues that, evaluation.
Yeah, but I
think they have it.
yeah, so we've already referred.
Oh,
And then, but I think they have a waiting, there's a waiting here. Yeah.
Ending not
Maria,
I can do that. One of our volunteer pieces for autism that are all national parents. So at least you can get family support.
yeah, and I think that we've already, through, the,
Okay.
yeah.
And then there's one other specific autism. Oh. So that would be an additional.
So Utah Youth Village has that Family First program. Well, they'll send a behaviorist into the home that's not ABA specific, but I mean, my guesses are they're doing a lot of the same stuff.
Anything.
And they have for unfunded. So that's the possibility to get on the waiting list. And then this is a thought. I don't know how helpful it would be, but he is documented now. Just calling Salt Lake County Health in the behavioral health and asking who provides the unfunded services. Like I know Valley does some, but you could probably get him in that way too with an unfunded behavioral health provider. Or Optum should know too who the unfunded providers are.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a nice list we'll put together. That's fabulous. Bravo, group, everyone. Okay, does anybody else have anything they're working on and would like some help or input from the group, or any other new programs, new resources you've come across you want to share? More summer camps?
I thought people probably know this one, but we had a family that the kiddo's almost 3, special needs. He was like 27 weeks, has a lot of issues. He's strictly tube fed. They have Cigna, and Cigna just flat out doesn't cover formula, period, doesn't, no matter what. And so we did an application through Nestle. We were able to get them 5 months of the special needs formula for free delivered to their home. And I'm just sharing that because I didn't know they would do that.
Is that, you just go to the Nestle website?
Yes, actually, the phone number is on their website. We have to actually call to get the updated application. The one online is like 2014, and they won't accept that one. So you have to have their 2016, and they won't put it online, so you have to call and have them send it to you. So it's not very user-friendly, but it did. We got this patient enough formula to get through the end of November. So
That's wonderful.
yeah,
Okay.
that was kind of a nice thing.
Okay. Looks like you have a couple of references. Okay, that's great. We'll look into making sure that that information or a variation on that is on our website. But that's great to know.
exactly what we're trying to make sure people know about it. Lesser known options. Wonderful. All right. All right, so just wanted to mention a couple of things on the portal. So I don't think our MCAD diagnosis module is quite out there yet, but it will be in the next few days. So we've done an update on MCAD. Not sure if that's a condition that affects any of the families that you work with, but as an FYI. And then we also have a new page directed for parents about management and prevention of constipation in children. So we're pleased about that. In fact, let's see if I can show that to you. Maybe I'll use our new Google custom search. You probably saw me up here quite a bit. So we've recently, I got to talk and type at the same time. We recently instituted Google custom search for part of our website, and it's pretty great. So I encourage you to be using this search bar right now, and we're continuing to make little modifications to that. It's a very flexible tool. Google's done a great job with that, and we're going to be putting it on our services directory as well here very shortly. So we're really pleased that we're seeing better search results, and I know that that's been very frustrating to a lot of people when they go to use the portal. So we're excited about that, and that was the other thing that I wanted to mention. So here's the page, and so it's got a little information on normal bowel function, babies and other ages, and then prevention, and habits, and then treatment, and maintenance, and when to go ahead and seek medical attention, and then some other tips there. Information about the over-the-counter laxatives and maybe ways to try and handle the cost over time with that, and then diaper costs as well. So hopefully that's helpful. If I understand correctly, maybe Dr. Norland can jump in here. This is a big issue. Yeah, people are nodding. So hopefully it's clearly an issue that you'd want to handle at home if at all possible, rather than heading to the emergency room or what have you every time there's an issue. So that's part of the reason that I think more and more organizations are hoping to get good information out into the hands of families and parents. And so we kind of followed along with that, and now have this information on the website. So. Okay, so now we get to talk a little bit more about motivational interviewing. How many of you attended the motivational interviewing seminar last month? Okay, so it looks like definitely the majority. That's awesome. So if you brought your booklet that you received there, great. This is a good time to have that handy. I will do the disclaimer right now that I am not a motivational interviewing expert by any stretch of the imagination. However, I am really interested in it, and I really did enjoy the training that we had. And so if people are interested in this information, I'm sure that we could make a photocopy or two of this and try and get it to you, or create a PDF out of it and send it to you if you're interested. A lot of really great stuff, and Debbie Stubbs was a great presenter too. So just a little bit of a recap. Motivational interviewing, it's actually a technique that was developed originally to help alcoholics. So adult-focused and actually even more focused around the topic of alcoholism, but very generalizable in many ways. And the bottom line is that it really comes down to that question of, can I truly motivate someone? And what we learned from Debbie is that you cannot. You cannot motivate someone. They have to motivate themselves, but you can assess where they're at in terms of their readiness to make changes in their behavior. And if you're able to sort of tap in to certain points in that and then use these techniques, you can sometimes help encourage that and move it along to the next step. So a definition for motivational interviewing is person-centered, which is very important, as we know, guided, a method of communication for enhancing intrinsic motivation, and that's, again, very important. Motivation has to come from that individual inside them, not us putting it on them, to change by exploring and resolving ambivalence and resistance. And so I think that last part's pretty important because that's where we come in, right, is that helping them to explore and resolve that ambivalence. And so there are general principles of MI that she brought up, and I thought they were kind of fun. So it's kind of an acronym here. You can see READ. The first is roll with resistance. And at first I wasn't 100% sure what that meant, but as we got into the training, it became more clear. And that is, you're going to encounter resistance from whether it's patients or their families, right? And that's actually something to pay attention to because that's information. And instead of, wanting to leave when you get resistance, wanting to put up those walls, wanting to become argumentative, that's when you learn to listen and roll with that. Let that be a tool that guides you. And then we definitely want to express empathy. And again, we talked about the difference between empathy and sympathy. And we can't always have empathy because truly empathy means you've been where that patient or that family has been. And that's not always the case, right? But we can do our best to try and put ourselves in their shoes and really try and see things from their perspective, which is incredibly important. And then A is for avoiding argumentation. The idea is that we're supposed to confront, which I also found kind of a little bit confusing because I don't like to confront, I don't want to confront, and yet it's a positive thing. Arguing is not helpful, it doesn't get us anywhere, but confronting means that you're providing information to them that they have to think about. And it's going to create that dissonance that they have to then try and come to terms with. And hopefully the way we do it helps them to realize that sticking with their same old behavior is not the way to deal with that dissonance. It's move over that and start changing that behavior. And that's really what 4 is about, is developing that discrepancy. And again, these are terms: confront, discrepancies, dissonance that don't necessarily sound positive, and yet they are, because what we're doing is requiring the person to begin to understand what the downsides are of their behavior and figure out for themselves, do I want to continue based on that new information, that understanding. And last is to support self-efficacy, because this really is their journey. It's their decision. It's their actions, right? And we're just in making those changes. And I thought it was really interesting that she mentioned that the person has to understand the reason that they should be doing something different. So it's us helping with that education piece, right, and that understanding piece, and helping families and patients to understand what the reasons for them are. And that was another piece that you really tried to hammer home, is that it's important for us to see the world through their eyes, because their reasons for ultimately changing could be very, very different from what we think their reasons should be. And that's that truly having that empathy and truly understanding the practices of MI will help us to be able to do that. So some general guidelines included asking open rather than closed questions. And that, again, might seem kind of counter, because the closed question is kind of a yes or no question. That gets us a quick answer and we can move on, right? Well, this is sort of the opposite of that. We want them to talk. We want more information from them. And sometimes if we don't have a lot of time, that can be a problem. But that's really what we want to do, is give them the opportunity to say whatever they need to say, so that we can help understand and then tailor whatever it might be to help them, support them. And then try not to ask 2 questions in a row. So that means ask that open question and leave. Let them answer. Give them the opportunity to think through it and answer it. Allow the person time to respond. So maybe it's uncomfortable silence for a minute. But that uncomfortable silence might prompt them to feel like they do need to respond. They do need to fill that silence with an answer, and that answer might be, the ticket to help getting into this. And then consider the amount of information. And the way I read that is that if we try and just throw every bit of information out, whatever these concerns are, whatever the health risks are with their behavior, whatever those concerning outcomes might be, if you tell them all of that at once, you can't process it. So consider, who you're talking to, what their capacity is at that moment, and how you're putting out the information that you want to get across to them. And then, again, consider the broader priorities of the person. For those of you who weren't in the training, Debbie used an example that was a little startling, but it got her point across very well. She talked about one of her patients. So, of course, her area is not with kids. So most of the examples that we heard or worked through were for adults. But she talked about a patient of hers that she actually worked with for quite a while, who was a prostitute, and had a couple of kids, and didn't really seem to have any intention of changing what she did for a living. And I guess she had some gangrene issues with a leg, and it was getting to the point where she was going to lose that leg. And so when Debbie finally talked with her about prostitutes without legs don't make money, that was what worked to get her attention. So that was, again, a startling example, but it really made you understand you have to put yourself where that patient is. You can't have that directive behavior, right? It's not that I'm right, I am the authority, you need to listen to me and do what I say. It's not that, it's the opposite of that. And again, those positive messages matter. So always make sure that we're talking in that positive. And I thought this table that was in the booklet was really, really interesting. So this is kind of the old school way of doing things, right? It's the practitioner-centered. It's I'm going to tell you this information instead of let's talk and you give me information and I'll give you some too. It's I'm going to save the patient. Well, I don't think the numbers back up that people who are getting saved in that way. So the patient needs to be the one that saves themselves. They need to have that empowerment. Behavior was dictated, and now we get to negotiate that. Right? We're trying to work out a deal with them, if you will. Compliance. We know that our brains are wired. So if you tell us we have to do something, we want to do the opposite, right? So that doesn't work. We want to negotiate. We want to ultimately have you understand, have that family understand why it's beneficial to do something, and then have them work to adhere to that, not to comply. So we become facilitators, right? We become partners in this instead of being, we will do this. So we can't motivate, we know that, but we can assess where they're at and see if we can help with that. Rather than the persuading and manipulating, it's really understanding and ultimately accepting that they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think that goes a lot farther in that partnership and that support, right? Resistance is bad used to be what we would consider, and now we understand, again, resistance is information. There's a reason they're resisting. Let's figure out what that is and see if we can help them work through that. Again, arguing versus confronting, and I really like the last one. We need to earn that respect, right? We need to earn that because we truly understand that we're on their side. We don't agree with everything that they're doing necessarily. We don't have to do that, but we can truly understand it. Okay, so some of the tools that she talked about include some rulers, and I really like these, and I'm hoping that some of you can help me remember what a few of these others were. So these rulers, they're like a scale, kind of like the pain scale that you could actually put in front of a parent or a patient or a family, and try and think, where are you on this? And kind of those three really important areas of readiness include how ready do you feel you are, but how important is this to you? If it's not important, they're not going to do it, right? So assessing that. And then what is your confidence level that you can do this? And we want to try and help, of course, instill that confidence. I feel like you can do this. And then the envelope. My notes say, what would have to be in an envelope that I would give you to get you to change? So do you guys remember that? I thought that was really interesting. That's kind of an interesting technique. You could maybe have an envelope that wouldn't necessarily have anything in it, but a visual, a physical thing to help them think about what would need to be inside here that would get me to change. And then can I share the asking permission? Can I share with you what concerns me about? If you get that permission, then that's your opportunity. But if they say no, we got to respect that too, right? And then I'll look over the fence. Who remembers this one?
It's like a year from now, if you were to make that change, what would your life look like? What do you see would be the results once you're there?
That's pretty powerful. And then maybe the reverse, too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's your life going to look like in that area if you make no changes? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Okay, and some aids that can help with this is some of these hypotheticals. I think that might be one of them. Asking permission before you kind of just go with all this information that you're going to give, right? And then this is kind of the format that so we're supposed to elicit information from them, then provide something back, and then elicit something more. And this is kind of that back and forth, that exchange that she's talking about. And overcoming obstacles. I have to admit, I don't remember exactly what that refers to. And I did like this one quite a bit, the change talk. So these are things to be listening for, right? And you can kind of pounce a little bit once you hear them. So this is, again, speaking to readiness, confidence, and importance to some degree. When you start to hear some of these words, then these are opportunities to say, okay, let's work in this area, let's go down this path. So if they talk about wanting, liking, wishing, that's desire. Ability is terms like, I can do this, I could possibly do that. Okay, now starting to talk about whether they're able or not to do this. If they provide specific arguments for why they should change, then they're starting to see those reasons for themselves. If they use terms like, I should, I ought, I have to, then they're seeing the need for it. Commitment, I'm ready, I promise, I intend, I will. And then taking steps, I'm doing this, I did it, I tried it. So these are terms that we want to be listening for, they're opportunities. So some of the things that really stuck with me, and I think for those of you who were in the training, you can tell me what you remember as well, but the empathize, the validate, reflect back, and then tell me more. That seems to be a really good strategy to use. So that is trying to show that you understand as best you can what they're going through by verbalizing that, empathizing that in a verbal way. And validate that. Let them know that there's, that is their feeling, and that's okay, that's great. Reflect back what they're saying to you. So I hear you say, so let me know if I'm hearing you correctly. And then ultimately, it always seems to work to say, can you tell me more about that? And really give them the opportunity, that open-ended way of filling in those blanks, giving you more information. And then get that discrepancy going. You want that you're doing this. So how can we find a way to get you from there to here? That bridge. And get that dissonance going so that they're like, yeah, I don't want to be doing this. I need to be over here. And then ultimately, you've got to bring it back to them. Build that framework. But they're the actors in this scenario. They've got to fill that in. You can talk to them. This is your choice. That's your choice. I can't change that for you. What do you want to do from here? They need to be the one in the driver's seat. That's always an opportunity to put it back on them. I think you may have heard me saying that, but I'm sure that you're thinking about these things as well. I just think this has so much application for more than just, for instance, the patients and their families that you might be seeing. So one of the reasons that we wanted to try and bring this back in this meeting today is to give you an opportunity to kind of work through some things that are maybe a little bit more focused for what you do on a day-to-day basis, but also talk about other ways we can apply these kinds of things as well, because there are going to be other situations where this could come in handy. We talked in these meetings about trying to implement new practices, right, new processes, new forms, whatever that might be, and getting resistance from some of the other members of our team. So we can use motivational interviewing to try and understand where that resistance is coming from, This is something that we can use on I think, anyone in our life. If we're trying to do things other than necessarily getting behavior change, we can still use these things to really get to the important stuff. So if we're trying to develop a shared plan of care, we can use these tools to make sure that the most important elements are in that plan of care so that we're getting to the goals of the family, as well as just kind of some of those more obvious things perhaps as well. Okay, so we have 5 different scenarios that we've come up with that are all, to some degree, children with special health care needs focused. So we would like to try and get folks into 5 different groups. And this will be an opportunity for you to do a little role play. There's no pressure. One thing that Debbie really underscored for us is that there's no wrong or right way to do motivational interviewing. well, directive, being really directive, telling people what they should and shouldn't do, that may be the wrong way. But ultimately, you know, use these tools in a way that makes sense for you, your personality, your style. So the idea here is to maybe have someone in the role of the family member, someone in the role of the care coordinator, and then others in the group listening. And if you've got this book, there are some scenarios in the back with like little tips and little guidance for, in the red part of the motivational interviewing techniques and how they can be applied and what's going on in that scenario. And those are nice to kind of refer to, and that's the kind of feedback we want to be giving in our groups to say, that was great, what about trying it this way? And then let's kind of try and mix it up a little bit so we have an opportunity to see these case scenarios develop a little bit within your group. So let's see. We've got a relatively good number of people here, so we probably need at least 5 in every group. And so if you have kind of natural settings, perhaps you can move yourselves around so that you have the ability to kind of talk easily with one another. So you guys in here.
Are you on? Dan, you want to get a
We're going to
Then we can just let him do